Experience the world's most legendary racing events with iRacing. iRacing special events allow any member to compete in full-length multiplayer races based on some of the biggest events in motorsports all year round. Compete in virtual endurance races, such as the Daytona 24, Spa 24, and the Nürburgring 24 Hours. Take on some of the toughest races on the NASCAR schedule, such as the Daytona 500. We have events from disciplines all across the racing world, from the Indianapolis 500 to the Chili Bowl, from the Bathurst 1000 to the Crandon Championship. Our endurance special events utilize iRacing's team feature, where members can sign up and race together on their own team, swapping drivers throughout the race. Other events utilize iRacing Super Sessions, where you're not only racing against those on track, but against every driver taking part. And as every race progresses, watch and feel the track change with progressive time of day, dynamic weather and rain, and dynamic track debris and surface changes. Take on your favorite discipline or try a brand new racing challenge with our biggest races of the year, the iRacing Special Events. Learn more at iracing.com/special-events.
It's a circuit that dominates in the high-speed prowess. It is a track which determines who is the best at their car control. When we head to the Red Bull Ring, it's a dawn of a brand new series. And here in the Formula B Super Formula Series, here on iRacing and SimSpeed TV, we're in for an absolute treat worth of racing action here in the Styrian Mountains. My name's Shakespeare. David Haynes is along with me for the ride here today. And David, I think it goes without saying, this is a special circuit that doesn't necessarily get made like this anymore. The former Österreich ring to A1 ring to now Red Bull ring, and critically, one of the strongest strength of fields that this series has ever seen.
Yes, a new season of this iRacing official series, and everyone is out in strength. Big numbers, multiple splits. This is the top split. This is the strongest drivers, and this is a very, very high-speed racetrack. It'll all combine for an exciting, exciting race.
It certainly will. Of course, we'll be going next week to Watkins Glen. You've got, of course, the Mobility Resort Motegi, as it is now known. And you look all the way down the order to the final few rounds. What a run-in that you've got from Suzuka to Long Beach, and then finishing the championship off at Interlagos. You cannot write a better championship run-in than that. It is all about holding yourself to account throughout every single round of racing action. But what is this circuit, and how big is this circuit going to be for battling? Because we will have a Google Earth look down here at where this circuit situates itself. We go over to Austria, and a track that pretty much nettles itself perfectly away. And Austria, known of course for the likes of KTM, for example, of being a very big bike culture, but it's also a wonderful motoring haven. And you see it right here, just on the edge of the mountains, and it is going to be a truly flat-out masterpiece, David.
Yeah, almost built into the side of the hill. You can see it from all the helicopter shots, sharply uphill from turn 1 towards that turn 3 braking zone where some moves can happen. Gently rolling with the hills towards turn 4, and then downhill underneath the shadow of that giant bull sculpture. Turns 7 and 8 there, super fast and rely on the grip of the cars. Turn 9 and turn 10, you got to mind your track limits through there. And then you've already completed another lap. Average speeds are ridiculous here. Officially, it's 10 turns. If I counted, I'd probably only count 9. So you've got to get absolutely every single one of them right. Absolutely every single lap. Because if you get one wrong, you've thrown out a whole lap. There's no coming back from it.
One wrong move, and you'll find that today is going to be one of the toughest challenges out there to try and build your points out over the course of the season. Let's take a little look at some of the information that we've got here with the machinery available. So 2 versions here of the Super Formula 23. You've got the Toyota and the Honda. They produce 550 plus brake horsepower, 405 kilowatts then from the battery, but they are cars that are so light out there, David. 670 kilograms is like having a shopping trolley, essentially, in weight that is full of food and whatever you've bought to push around in comparison to a car that is producing what would feel like, for many, a rocket ship.
Oh, there's probably many an adult bull that weighs more than 670 kilograms. It is a serious performance machine. Super Formula has its roots initially in Japanese F3000, and then it sort of stepped out of the shadow of being a regional Formula One feeder series into a premium, competitive, serious championship all of its own that is known all around the world and really, really respected for how powerful and high level these machines are and how strong the competition can be. And we are looking forward today to seeing how strong this competition can be, because I think we are going to have an absolutely stacked grid.
And they'll also have, over the course of racing, the option of the overtake system, which is available for them. They will have 200 seconds worth of it, and you will tell when it is being activated by a solid green light, which is available. When it's slow blinking and it's green, you're in retime, so to speak, so you're using it. And then in the fast red blinking light, you've got less than 20 seconds remaining of that to use. But once you use it, David, you have a 100-second cool-off. So that means you've only got it once every 2 laps. So if you make a chance on an odd lap, if the driver that you're battling with is using it on the even laps, effectively it's chop and trade all day.
I was about to say, for a lot of cars here at the Red Bull Ring, a lap is not 100 seconds. It's basically a minute for a car like this, so you're right that if you use it 1 lap, you probably won't have it the next lap. It becomes incredibly tactical as you're battling, particularly if you're going wheel to wheel with someone who's of similar speed than you. If you go for it, they wait, then they might have it next lap. And so, yeah, incredibly tactical. How to maximize the use of that system to get the most out of it, not just for a lap time's sake, but to get track position, to defend track position, to play that big game of chess.
Qualifying currently underway here in top split. They will have 8 minutes to set a time, 2 laps available to them to set, and as well as that, 29 laps is on the docket here today. Jake Spencer, currently the fastest on a 1:11.8 as it stands. Here comes Lucas, hand over towards the line. What can he do out there? It's 11th only, down to 12th on a 1:12.5, so didn't quite get that into play. 7/10 of a second off the pace as it goes. Here's car number 1 and the odds-on favourite for today. He's got 9,400 iRacing. He is a demon in these Super Formula machines, David. It is the Norwegian Timothy Friis-Larsen.
Keep an eye on these drivers as they go through turns 9 and 10 here, because track limits there for qualifying and in the race. You've got to keep 1 tyre within the track. Timothy Friis-Larsen has. He goes within half a tenth of pole.
There, that's Adam Merchant, who has moved up and found a time. JT Smeaton here, 8.5k out there in iRacing. That's the top 1% there in iRacing. If you find yourself at that level, the 8Ks, the 9Ks, it is pretty much a wonderful world out there. If you reach that level, 11.9, then from him, only good enough for 8th. Rob Mandermarker is 3rd. Stas Pugachev in 4th position. Spencer down to 5th, and Luis Kachan is now 6th position overall. Dennis Branch is a notoriously good qualifier. He's currently in 7th position overall. Here is Luis Kachan, as there was another jump up the order then as they have looked to set themselves up. That's Gabri Martinez, who is there in 7th position. He won a race actually in the IMSA Vintage Series earlier on today. So the pushes to the line still going to be important, with still less than 3 minutes on the clock. Friis-Larsen on his 2nd attempt, needing that half a tenth to get it over the line, to get it up towards pole position. How is it going to be from the number 1 car? It won't count. Oh, that's big.
I think he went wide at the exit of turn 10 there. He no longer had 1 tyre on the serrated curb, and he was out onto just the concrete. And I think that is the bridge too far as track limits in 9 and 10. Every single car you see coming through here, they're pushing that limit. See the white ridged curbs, got to keep a tyre on that. The green ridged curb, got to keep a tyre on that. Once you're in the green flat C, I think you're off track limits. And Timothy Friis-Larsen, he was pushing for all of those tenths that he knew he needed. He just didn't quite get him.
As far as we now know, every car except one has set a time, and the session will advance slightly earlier at the moment for inactivity. So that at the moment will be how the grid will stack. Adam Merchant will get the pole position to start the season off with Timothy Friis Larsen in the number 1 alongside for company. Rob Mandemaker will go from 3rd place for the Netherlands as Stas Pugachev will start in 4th. Jake Spencer and Luis Kachan will be 5th and 6th, just a 10th and a half separating the top 7 as JT Smeaton will be in 7th place and Gabri Martinez then in 8th. Dennis Branch will start in 9th with Dan Jiang rounding out your top 10 for Australia. It then follows with Noddy Amel in 11th and Jack David Spickett, who colloquially represents Finland out there because he is that quick. He's there in 12th. Victor Awad will go in 13th with I Am Keyman, who was very, very quick in the Formula Renault 3.5 back in the day. He's 14th with Brett Greaves and Andrew Petty on row 8. You've then got the Montenegrin of Andrea Midzor, who is 17th with Mark Ponick in 18th position. Your top 20 rounded out by Lucas Hand and Ben Ford, who wasn't quite able to get a lap time that he wanted down on the board. The last car who is not on our graph here today as we get ourselves set will be Sebastian Kernavonyaski, who did not get a time into play. So 29 laps here, David, 125 kilometers on the board and no pit stop required. It's a straight up sprint.
Yeah, the tactical element is going to come from that overtake system, and luckily it's got those lights that make it very visible how the drivers are using that system. 17x on that incident limit. Again, got to mind some of the track limits. You can also get a slowdown in racing conditions if you cut too much of the runoff, particularly exiting turn 9.
Yeah, turn 9 I think is going to be really important here then, the limits to go and get this correct. That is the Jochen turn out here on this circuit as they will line themselves up. It is a frighteningly cold circuit here today as well. Just the 19 degrees Celsius track temperature, air temp of 18. Not much wind to talk about here, but it's rather humid out here for all of these drivers. No threat of rain on the horizon today, so it's going to be a full dry race all the way to the checkered flag. So it's all about being aggressive, finding the opportunities and using your overtake system, your OTS, better than anybody else. Adam Merchant will have the control then of the field as everyone will look to line themselves up and get themselves ready with all 21 on the grid. Let's get some engine noise as we get ourselves ready here from the Red Bull Ring, and we are underway. Slow start then on the reaction time by Adam Merchant. Immediately Timothy Friis Larsen will move to the inside, heading over towards turn number 1. He gets the whole shot and runs off into the distance now as they'll look to clamber on through the opening corner. It's clean on the start as they'll run down then through towards the Munster turn of turn 2, over towards turn 3, which is colloquially known as Ramus Corner. On the brakes they'll go again. Spencer under a bit of pressure right now as he will look to be attacked at this point in time by JT Smeaton, but a lovely clean start.
Yeah, and look at that track state. Already lots of marbles and gravel around the outside of some of the corners. So as you battle too wide, something you got to keep an eye on as you bring tyre temperature into your Yokohamas.
Yeah, they're going to need it. Car off wide, then slightly. That's going to be Dennis Branch who's dropping down. I Am Keyman then is going to be looking to try and go and get the pass then. It's not going to work. The only two left-handers on this circuit, if you count the Munster turns, the left-hander, there's 3, but the big one here of Graz Corner, here, turn number 7, named after the city of Graz, which is the nearest city to this track. On board a look from behind then, as Luis Kachan looks at Jack David Spickett, tried to find a look, so actually I'll correct myself, that's Dan Jiang in front of that, as we look behind, as they will look to try and push, and already this opening lap proving to be very, very tough. Back there, the very fringes of the shot, Victor Awad and Lucas Hand going at it then as they head towards turn 1.
3 wide is hold your breath, and the track limits on the outside with that nasty sausage curb. If you get pushed wide, you can spin back across, but they all negotiate that successfully. Some of that overtake system getting active here uphill, it's going to give you such an advantage.
Oh, big contact then down at turn 3. It will force the likes of Jack David Spickett, Dennis Branch and co. Spickett off the road. Noddy Amel, I think, was one of the drivers looking at Gabri Martinez. Very aggressive here, so they'll run down to Rauk Corner, turn 4 out on track, and it is all about finding yourself with the opportunity then to go and make these passes. And you'll see as well on the timing tower, anytime the arrows come up, that is the use of the overtake system here that will give them the opportunity to use that electrical energy to go on and push forward here. There is Victor Howard down in 17th position, a bit of side-by-side in front now up the hill. Jack David Spickett eyeing up Dennis Branch then for a move as they will go through. We look at Howard there, and I think the pass has been aborted by Spickett as they've gone by. But what an incredible start. There you can see the push to pass then on your screen.
You can see the cooldown, you can see the amount remaining when they're active, you can see them using it. And this is going to be the incident at turn 3. Oh, the lane just closes around the outside there, bit of contact made.
And it is as simple as that, just a tiny tap is enough to throw the line, and those anti-cut curves on the outside, they're square to the circuit, so if you catch it wrong, and speaking of wrong, Jack David Spickett out of the race then at turn 1. We can see here on the brakes, and he overcooks it. That looks like a failure to me, and there's no other way of describing it. You don't just go straight off and pull the car over to one side like that. I reckon he's had some form of hardware failure that has cost him his run in the race. Jack David Spickett, a real shame. Adam Merchant now in 2nd position, has Rob Mandermarker in 3rd, but Merchant critically has kept himself within range at the moment from lap 3, and I wonder here whether that push to pass and the fact that they're not using it early on, they're trying to save it for as much of a big go using it as they can to stay within range. If I was Adam Merchant, I'd be tactically using it to stay within about a second.
Yeah, and this is such a high-speed track, so monitoring that gap between 1st and 2nd so important. The slipstream is so powerful. It's slightly hillier Monza around here. You saw Fries Larsen just trying to break the slipstream down the front straight. Adam Merchant trying to follow it up the hill, and there are 3 or 4 straights where you reach past 250 kilometers an hour, and that slipstream effect, even in high horsepower cars like this, will be just keeping you in touch with the race leader. You've got about a 4-car slipstream trained for that race lead at the moment.
And here's the car on the outside of it looking in. Stas Pugachev, who is in 5th position, going through Rauk corner. Behind him, Jake Spencer, Dan Jiang there, and Luis Kachan. They're all there together. They're all looking to hold. Now, here's a replay here of Stas Pugachev getting the move done then on Jake Spencer. So you can see moves over to the left-hand side and practically gifted the position there with the move through. And that could be an understanding of looking in the rear-view mirror, seeing the roll hoop there. You can see the flash there on Stas Pugachev. That's indicating that it's trying to be in a cool-down period. Anyone with green has that available, and that's the full light of green. That's how you can tell how the system's being used or not here with that overtake system. It's the unique perk that you see here with this car. Lucas Hand with a gaggle in front.
He's already in 6th gear heading down the front straight, getting that slipstream off the cars in front. Trying to just bounce the curbs right through turn 1, keeping an eye on who's using overtake, and look at them clear out in front of us as they use overtake, and Lucas Hand keeps his cards closer to his chest.
Yeah, he's not really showing anything at the moment, but they are in front because it is getting busy down at turn number 3 as you've got the likes then of Noddy Amel, I.M. Keeman, Dennis Branch is on the radio saying, I'm not really wanting to fight this too much. Here goes Hand to the outside. Branch does defend the move, and there's no drive on the exits, covered off. It all funnels down to the final part there, the left-hand side of the circuit, through at turn 4 Rauk, so that's why it sits itself as there is. Now look behind here, JT Smeaton has been the hot knife through butter. He started 7th, he's up to 4th. He's got his eyes on Rob Mandermarker here for 3rd.
Yeah, you can see Smeaton's had a use of the overtake system, gotten right in behind 3rd place. That's where we are right now, on board with 3rd, looking back at 4th as 1st and 2nd both make the first use of the overtake system. I think they've counted backwards on the laps and gone, when should I start using it? And it's by about now, and you can see how much extra speed it gives you, because it gives Timothy Fries Larsen the fastest lap of the race on lap 6 as he just unleashes a little bit of that dormant horsepower.
Yeah, it's there, down to the inside. Mandermarker trying to look around. Now, he does have it available to deploy as Smeaton's gone and made a move. I wonder if Mandermarker here is going to go out there and be aggressive. Look at Pugachev. He's already used almost half his quote-unquote push to pass his overtake system here in this one. 119 seconds already, so he might be in a bit of trouble later on in this race, but Mandermarker happy to sit behind Smeaton because he'll feel at this moment, David, if JT Smeaton Smeaton is as quick as he says there in the Nexus machine. He will be looking around at Adam Merchant, he'll be looking around at Timothy Fries-Larsen going, please, give me a tow rope and pull me along to the leaders.
Yes, if the other driver uses their overtake system, but you can still stay with them in the slipstream, and then you've got a little bit more overtake to use, like Mandamarca does, about 9 seconds more than Smeaton, then you can use that to your advantage later on. If you just stay with the slipstream with someone else who's using their overtake to push on, how slippery is that final curve?
How slippery? I think it's very slippery for Noddy ML, and you've got to make way for Noddy out here in towards turn number 1. The Nicky Lauda curve, named after the wonderful world champion then from the 70s and the 80s. But ML is under pressure. This is Lucas Hahn, moves over to the outside through the Munster corner, and now over towards turn 3 at Ramus. Straight down the inside. Thank you very much. We'll get the move done. They've got Ben Ford on the back, who started in 20th, and Ford will get the run on the exit there. So very clever here, these moves being done. Noddy ML losing 2 in the space of a corner.
Yeah, really good use of the overtake system there, and first driver runs through. And then you see the wheel spin with that extra horsepower coming off of turn 3. You can use the overtake system so early in the straights because you get a number of uses, but a total number of seconds as well. So each time you do activate overtake system, you want to really stay on it to really get the maximum benefit of it, because once you stop, you got to go through that cooldown.
You absolutely do. Remember, it's manual to turn it on, and it is manual to turn it off. This isn't automatic out there. We take a look with Adam Merchant's view here. He's very much now in the cooldown as he looks to set it up and try and get himself back into position. So you're looking around, it's just a button press, and often sometimes a driver can forget to use that button press or goes to use it on a lap and realizes, nope, you're still not allowed to use it just yet. But Adam Merchant is using it tactically, he's using it well, and he's using it to try and stay with Timothy Fries-Larsen. And the difference really for Adam Merchant here is, as he gets a little sore on the steering wheel, that Cosworth steering wheel, then to try and hold himself steady. The only thing I think he's done wrong in this race, Adam Merchant, was he was slightly slow on the reaction time to get off the grid.
Standing start is always a challenge in Formula cars. It's where the greatest variation between the good and the other drivers happens.
Andrew Petty turned around. That is at Rauch corner, turn 4. He was side by side with Victor Awad. He pushed onto the curb and then spun himself around there using his Toyota there with the mock-up early 2000 colours on it. So you can see no contact with Awad. He just gets on the curb, and it is slightly raised there over on that left-hand profile. So that's how easy you can turn it around, just trying to run a tightrope, and ultimately finds himself falling to the abyss.
That's clearly a throwback to Formula Nippon legend Ralf Schumacher, 1996 champion.
Oh yes, that too. So there is a lot of lovely liveries that are thrown up here, and the iRacing creators are simply magnificent when they get their minds to it here as they go on by. Stas Pugachev down the order now. He's gone from 6th to 8th on this lap. So Spencer went through, and then ultimately flying by was Dan Jiang and Luka Kachan. I could only feel for Pugachev as he was on the brakes that maybe he was serving a slowdown penalty.
Yeah, we've spoken about this already through turn 9s and turn 10. There's so much runoff that if you get really far out there is a slowdown penalty to be had. I think there's a 1x off track to be had a little earlier, and we saw that catch some drivers out during qualifying. Now in the racing conditions, you don't mind it quite so much, but still, you can't be doing it every lap, running the far side of those white serrated curves. That's the track limits.
Yeah, Dennis Branch here in 12th position. The gap at the front has just ticked over 1.2. We go to Dan Jiang here versus Luis Kachan. This is the battle on for 6th and 7th position. Kachan now looking to try and use the slipstream down the hill, really trying to attack, then using as much as he can. But Jiang here has got it covered and scouted at the moment. They will now duel along this wonderful run to turn 4, a part of the circuit where the straights just aren't. And it's that small little fend over to the left-hand side that gets it done for Luis Kachan as he hits the brakes, and the Brazilian jumps on up and gains another one, now to 6th.
Yeah, great work. Great space left in turn 3 as well. And traction out of those slow corners. Obviously, such a challenge in a turbocharged car like this. Saw it from the onboards. A lot of the drivers using second gear through turn 3, through turn 4. Actually saw third gear in use for turn 4 as well. So you want to get punchy drive, but you're trying to contain the wheel spin.
You are, and that wheel spin's going to be really important here because we know it's not a pit stop, but you still have to manage the tyre life that you've got available. Behind Jiang is Lucas Hand and I Am Keyman then battling for position, and Keyman is going to lose the place then through turn 1 as Jiang now is going to start using it to his advantage at 280 kilometers an hour, getting close to the rain light there of Kachan is not going to get there. Keyman now watching here with Branch as Lucas Hand just gets the clearance. But for the moment, this wonderful wing view of Dan Jiang is proving that this is brilliant to see. Just the level of pace that's there, how aggressive these cars are, and why in Japan this is effectively one of the few alternates that you see out there for some great racing drivers.
Yeah, speeds down the front straight, up the hill, excess of 280 kilometers an hour. A little bit of slipstream helping that, but even when they do have to slow down into some of those tight corners, very quickly you see how 600 horsepower or so gets you up to speed very, very rapidly on the other side of the corner again.
Yeah, and that's where you're going to start seeing here. Drivers are going to really push and find the limits. Fastest lap is JT Smeaton's as he pulls himself to 1.1 to the back of Adam Merchant here, trying to hold this race honest out there. Kachan, Jiang, you've got Pugachov who is there. Gabri Martinez also trying to hold on to this group of 4 at the moment. Lap 12 of 29. Can you believe it? We're almost halfway through this race. It has been a lightning fast start. Your biggest movers and shakers. Lucas Hand, the biggest mover up the field. 19th up into the top 10 in 10th position. That's some really good going.
Yeah, and JT Smeaton is not hanging about either. Like you say, he's now a lot closer to Adam Merchant in second than Adam Merchant is to the race lead. That gap just opening up enough, I think, that Timothy Fries-Larsen has broken the slipstream, very much to Adam Merchant's detriment. Smeaton now chipping away at it, is about to shoe on the other foot this to get into the slipstream a second.
9 thousandths on lap 9, a tenth and a half on lap 10, a tenth and a half, or a tenth and 2/3 even on lap number 11. On lap 12, what's the difference? For Adam Merchant, it's a 12.3. You look over at JT Smeaton at 11.9, 4/10 of a second on that last lap. Timothy Fries-Larsen responding with a fastest lap of the race. Luis Kachan has it. JT Smeaton's time won't count because of the fact that he had an off-track on his lap, so it's not official. His lap, which was 1,000th quicker than Luis Kachan in 6th place. So at the moment, JT Smeaton burning the midnight oil at the moment, or I would say the 3 o'clock oil that he would be having and dealing with at the moment. Pugachov and Jiang remaining close, but remember, Dan Jiang is having to use a lot of the overtake system. Pugachov, I don't think's touched it since about lap 4.
Yeah, only 113 remaining for Pugachov though, so might have gone pretty hard on it pretty early, making some of those moves that we've seen happen. 16th and 17th is small margins. Did you see Midzor kind of bounce a little bit of the apex curb there and sort of push a bit wide, catching too much of the apex curb?
Yeah, you've got to be careful about that. These curbs are slightly raised, part of iRacing's curb updates, which have really revolutionised how you attack a circuit, and it creates a lot more jeopardy, especially there through Graz into turn 8 on track. You've got to be very careful. Now here at Jochen you've got to be setting yourself up and steady as Brett Greaves, I think, is run into trouble, or has allowed a car through behind him. Sorry, was on the radio for it. It was Andrew Petty who's gone through because Greaves is going down into pit lane. So obviously something not right here for Brett Greaves. Damage to the front left wing as Smeaton now within 4/10 of a second here of Adam Merchant. He wants the pass.
Yeah, that lap 12, he extended the track limits a little bit, really closed in the gap, but then it didn't count as the fastest lap of the race because he pushed a tiny bit beyond track limits in the final corner. Now he's within the slipstream range. He can bring it all back just a little bit as far as restraining himself within the track limits, but he's still closing in, applying the pressure. And then you probably look to see Merchant use overtake systems. You hope to stay within his slipstream, and then when you know he's in the cooldown, you go and use your overtake system. That's probably the best time to make a move.
Yeah, so you're just trying to find that moment. 4 seconds the difference between Smeaton and Merchant on their OTS out there, which we have labelled as push to pass, because it runs a very similar system to that what you see in IndyCar. Timothy Fries-Larsen, though, is checking out, but he has his fastest lap stolen away, not once but twice. Jake Spencer now holding the control of that. Smeaton closing himself in, looking for second, looking at the inside, can't quite get there. Wide goes Merchant, he outbroke himself at turn 3. It's a late braking zone up the hill, and Smeaton will look around it and go, I didn't touch you as I went by. And I think Adam will say, yeah, it's all good, I ran slightly out of talent.
Well, he was looking in the mirrors, not looking at the brake markers. That was the issue for Adam Merchant. He knew that Smeaton was coming. Smeaton was getting close enough to try to make that move, and I think the only reason there wasn't overlap is that Merchant has just overdone it a little bit here. At this point, you're looking in your mirror, not looking at your brake marker, and as you even get the left side tyres on the curb, loses a little bit of grip from that.
Really tough to deal with there for Adam Merchant as he now starts falling back into third position, and now we'll have a lot to try and navigate through here towards the second half of this race, and so there's a lot to deal with. So let's take a little look further back in the pack here as JT Smeaton sets the fast lap. This is Dennis Branch and co down into Route Corner, getting through turn 4. Now there was already gravel off there, and look at that, a complete spin then for Lucas Hand, who had to try and find his way back out onto circuit again. Oh, and he was beached there in the middle of the road, and there's more trouble there. Another car goes around. It's Victor Auad, the Brazilian.
This is at the exit of turn 1. Now, I said you can hit the curbs ugly through there, but also it's a very, very tough place to battle side by side. You can go side by side through some of the quick corners, you can go side by side through some of the slow corners, but there's always a pinch at turn 1.
He's lost this so early. Watch this, on the brakes, trying to dive down the inside. He's lost it on entry. It's not even because he's hit the curb. He's just locked up the rears, trying to get that so heavy on the brakes. I think he's just used a little bit too much brake.
Yeah, there's the elevation change as well as you turn into the right-hander. So if you're not gentle as the car rides a little bit of the crest, then it'll get light. And I think that's what's happened as well, contributed to losing the rear of the car over the crest.
So this is Greaves, who had gone into the pit, so that is over the curb, spinning around. I wonder whether going over that curb damaged the front left of the wing, because he came into the pits, got a fresh wing on the car, which cost about 11 seconds, and they continued on. 68 Fahrenheit or 20 degrees, track slowly warming, because in sim time, it's just gone 9 o'clock in the morning here. Good morning, Austria.
Moo, say all of the dairy cows, bulls and everything around the place. It's going to be a decent day for them, but they are listening to the symphony of the Honda and Toyota 2-litre turbocharged engines ripping around the Red Bull ring here.
Yeah, so they will be hearing just how wonderful of a start this is. Dan Jiang here in 7th, holding his ground quite nicely. You look behind at Stas Pugachev, who is there, who hasn't used any battery really out there of his overtake system since lap 4, and we'll be looking at Gabriel Martinez. I.M. Kehrman is there as well in 10th place, but just a couple seconds down the road. This is really difficult as a series to be a driver in, I think, David, because the amount of thinking you have to do and judging of what a driver around you has or doesn't have or can use or can't use, you need to have about 7 different spreadsheets open in your head just to try and work out what's doing, and you start wondering here, with all these tabs open, which one's making all the noise?
Hogging all of the RAM too. The faster a race car is, the more precise you've got to be with your inputs, the more every millisecond about the brake application and the turn-in point becomes really, really critical. So you've got all of that going on, just trying to drive these cars where you've got to be pitch perfect in every input that you give the car, and then you're thinking, where are the other drivers around me? What's the track state doing? How do I deploy and use my overtake system to maximum advantage in a dynamic unfolding situation where someone might spin in front of me and now I think, oh, I don't need to use my overtake, I can save that for later, or someone's coming up behind me quick, now I do have to use it. Think about optimizing my strategy in a dynamic environment.
Mandermarker now in defensive position here because Jake Spencer has caught up. Look how aggressive this is from Mandermarker. Goes all the way to one side of the circuit, back over to the other to take his natural racing line. They go through the Niki Lauda curve, and this is where Jake Spencer has the chance to use his power to his advantage. Bright yellow now trying to get himself to move over around the outside, 283 kilometers an hour, but Mandermarker is better on the brakes, and Rob Mandermarker can hold the position, and Spencer gets no drive up the hill.
Almost looked as if Spencer used 1 second of overtake exiting turn 1, then came off of it, didn't get enough of an advantage up the hill, and now is back in the cooldown, best I understand. So he might have made a little mistake in his deployment there. Or he's trying to fake out Mandermarker.
Well, there's two ways of looking at it. Yes, it could have been a fake, but secondly, if you press the button and you let go of it and effectively double press, you've got a second, and you've only got that 1 second to go and play with. So I think you sit down, you look at Jake Spencer here, it's really cost because there's no drive off the exit, and you've got to wait 100 seconds before you get another chance to use it.
Yeah, there might have been just a little mistake there in that from Spencer. Obviously, Mandermarker is incredibly robust in trying to break the slipstream, looked very strong on the brakes up into turn 3 a lap ago, and those things combined are going to make him difficult to pass.
They are, so keep it in mind as they look at their drive and see what they are going to be able to do over the course of the final, 10 laps now of this race. Goodness, this has flown by quickly, and you start looking here at Luis Kachan, Dan Jiang, and all the group here in the mid-pack hoping to get points. Late points are going to be critical. Ben Ford now up 9 spots, looking to go double digits too, but Jake Spencer holding himself steady. I think he wants this move at the end of this race, and he's got 20 seconds more to play with here than Rob Mandermarker. I think that's going to be really critical over the final stages of this race. Spencer does have the ability to effectively say, look, I can go and get through, and come and get me, I think is going to be the question that will come back, or the statement that comes back from Rob Mandermarker here.
Mind those track limits, exit of 9. Mind those track limits, exit of 10.
Yeah, very close there for Mandermarker. He's really pushing over at this stage, trying to use all of the road, and almost, I would say, to the letter of the rule book, he's making his moves. That's someone who has studied his racing style and has gone, I will take it to the absolute nth degree and extreme.
Yeah, I think it was pretty extreme to be rally crossing it on the exit of the final corner there, and maybe it's dirtied up the tyres a little bit, and perhaps it even just dents your confidence a little bit. These are super quick cars, and you've got to be just that precise, and you get that millimetre wrong, you go wide, you cost yourself time.
And all it will do over the course of this run is make it very, very difficult to go and get things sorted. Now let's take a little look here at this replay. This is coming down the hill, then over towards turn 3 right now. Right-hand side covered up over the top of the climb. I think this is going to be another little look when you get towards turn number 4 out there, because this is Ben Ford who was trying to get there over I Am Keman, but Keman there just had the coverage on the defence. It's not often that you get to say, look, I've just absolutely bossed it under braking and I can pull away. I think this is what makes this car very unique, is that not only can you go and make a move, say, for example, but even if you defend, you have the ability to really stamp on the power and run away.
Drivers in our top 5 being a little bit more sparing with that overtake than deeper in the field. You can see it in the numbers there that quite a few of the other drivers back there, like Dan Jiang, Pugachev, they've all used a lot of the system, whereas Timothy Fries-Larson, JT Smeaton, Adam Merchant, less so, although Merchant's just getting into a little bit of it. And Kachan here has used a fair bit more, and he has closed in on this gap as Mandermarker and Spencer have driven all over the road, weaving one way, the other, battling each other, making some little mistakes.
Little grab a gravel there for Jake Spencer. That will make life for a couple laps down there tough as the gravel gets kicked up onto the circuit, David. And basically, everyone's going to have slightly less grip next time they come around that section. It's part of iRacing's dynamic track system that you can drag elements of the circuit back onto the racing surface, and it makes life even tougher.
Saw it very dramatically at Turn 4. That's one of the places the gravel is close to the racetrack. It's not here on the exit of Turn 1 or on the exit of Turn 9. But at Turn 4 it was very dramatic. I think Spencer now needs to be very careful.
He does, because here comes a chance then. This is Luis Kachan, who has decided he's going to make that move down into Turn 3, up the hill, and now getting the drive off the exit. Brilliant stuff. Luis Kachan now +1 for the day. Jake Spencer -1, and now the ability to attack then the final 7 laps, or 6.5 from this point, is going to be critical. Down into route corner at Turn 4, and a good move by Luis Kachan, who will now look at Rob Mandermarker and think, 4th would be a wonderful way to start this season.
Yeah, the number of points on offer sort of multiplied by the strength of field, and this is a very high strength of field. If you're looking to win this championship or place well in it, winning a split like this is one of your best ways to do it. They will know what is on offer in this particular race today.
Well, they're looking around and they're seeing the car in front just going purple again and again and again. Timothy Friis-Larsen is on another level at the moment. 3.5 seconds clear. Is that Gabri Martinez in trouble? Through the final corner it is. He's dropped like a stone. Spun through the final section. No front wing on it as he's gone through. He's done a Pierre Gasly.
So that's one of the saddest looking Super Formula cars we have seen all day. Gabri Martinez, that is wide, so wide through Turn 9. Then he's offline coming into 10. He just, gets on that curb, bounces with a slide over the curb, high sides it. The car is skidding along the floor rather than the wheels there, and the concrete wall does the damage.
That's just the second retirement of this race. Jack David Spickett the first. We reckon there was a little bit of contact somewhere for Jack, and that's what's caught him out in trouble. Spencer, though, still in 6th position, but clearly he's on the cool down right now, trying to get his overtake system back online, as Luis Kachan has his available to go and defend. Nowhere near the 20 out there, or the final 20% where the light will go red out there and cause a little bit of trouble. Another 11.2 from Timothy Friis-Larsen. He's not even using his system as well, which will be a scare for everybody else out there in this system, not using the 400 watts that are available. Wide goes Kachan, though, through Turn 1. Thank you very much. Is going to say surely Jake Spencer on the exit. Look at the drive down the hill then through the Munster corner, which translates from German to money there, and up into Turn 3 there. Luis Kachan back to 6th. Jake Spencer now inside the top 5. Here comes I Am K-Man on the defensive, because Ben Ford is trying to find a way through.
Yeah, Ford versus Ferrari seems to be what's going on with this livery, and this has been one of the drivers to watch now into the top 10. I think obviously made a mistake in qualifying if that 19th place was representative of his qualifying pace, and he's got a massive gulf between his 1 lap and his race pace. I don't believe that, so I think there might have been a problem perhaps with the track limits in qualifying for Ford. He's tried to make good on it here in this race.
I'll tell you what, Ben Ford is a very, very good driver. I've seen him in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour at Montreal. He was very quick before his retirement there last year. So he is someone who can very much go out there and scrap it out with the big boys at the moment. Keman still having to deal with his defence out there at this point, and he's managing it quite well. Big group as well here, David, further back behind Andrea Midzor, then the Montenegrin here, because he's got Ponic behind him. Sebastian Kernavonyaski is there, and Lucas Hand. They're all going to trip over each other late, I think.
It's got all the makings of it could be a bit of a firecracker here.
And it's going to happen straight down the inside. Mark Ponic thinking about it. Can he get the drive off the exit? No, pinch. Midzor just about going to get the run. Ford just in front of that's going to get the move. They're going to have to try and deal with the traffic that moves over to one side. So Keman has lost the place up in front, but Midzor again having to defend here at turn 4 around the outside. Mark Ponic still looking, and then suddenly Kernavonyaski has Lucas Hand trying to find a way around the outside. Two long left-handers not going to be there. Back in line you all go.
Now it's about the tactical use of your overtake, because if you use it to try to make a move and the move doesn't come off, then you're vulnerable to suddenly 3 or 4 cars behind. So when you're looking at 2 cars in front, 2 cars behind like Yaski is, you've got to be so careful. You're counting backwards to that final lap, I think, as well. You don't want to be caught without the use of the system on lap 29.
You absolutely don't. You want to use it as much as you can. Here comes the move then. Hand to the inside is going to steal one then on Kernavonyaski, who started at the very back of this field. That drops him down to 16th position here. Ponic then will be just in front of Hand. And then you've got Midzor, the Montenegrin, who is holding this group and is doing just about enough then as they go into this section of corner, turn 3 and up the hill. A circuit here really where the straights aren't truly straight here, and that really does challenge the drivers because you can't really rest. And look at this, brilliant aggressiveness from Lucas Hand, trying to go down the inside. It's contact. 1, 2, 3, all off. Let's go bowling.
Schieb ihn raus, Timo. Oh my goodness. Yeah, there was a aggressive look, but once the other driver's there, you can't be going slamming that door without expecting something like that to happen. And yeah, I guess the tempers boil late in the race.
Yeah, that's just a case of you're trying to be aggressive, you're trying to find the pass, they lock wheels, and then it all goes wrong from that point onwards. So there's a lot of finger pointing between everyone after that instant. Midzor is just a bystander here. So there's the move to the inside. Now they hit the brakes, and you have to say, Hand is coming across hit there and trying to get more turn in for the racing line. That's on Lucas Hand.
It's like you say as well about the straights aren't straight, so the track is subtly curving back to the left as you're going into the braking zone there. Do you hold your lane as it curves, or do you hold your car straight? And different drivers will have slightly different interpretations of that can kind of occasionally bring them together. We're about to get the white flag for a potential victory lap for this machine.
Yeah, he's number 1 for a reason. He's got over 9,300 iRacing. If you know that you're close to the 10K club, it is something that gives so much confidence to all drivers out there to say, I am part of the 10K crew. JT Smeaton with the fastest lap, and we note as well that Lucas Hand was going down the pits not for damage, but for hitting the instant point limit out here. So that was a drive-through penalty that had to be set up. Timothy Friis Larsen now finding himself just a handful of corners away in what has been a dominant display. Light flashing at the moment, clearly with lots to work with. Then in terms of his overtake system, he's just quietly managed the gap out in front, and nobody's really been able to do too much to hold themselves in regard to stay close. He's just slowly pulled the gap in the opening 10 laps, and then at the moment Adam Merchant couldn't do much more. JT Smeaton has left himself too much to do over a race like today. Jochen Rindt and turn 10 remains for Norway's finest heading on through, and it was anything but free for Timothy Friis Larsen. He'll take the opener here at this Red Bull Ring, and he says, it's my championship you'll have to catch, and you'll have to be better than perfect for it. Smeaton second, Merchant third. It'll be a drag race to the line for fourth, but Mandermarker is going to hold on.
Also saw some other positions being fought over here. Drivers that had saved their push to pass to the very last. Top 10 crossing over the line there. And Merchant will think, how powerful is the slipstream here? Because for 5, 6, 7 laps, he could go with Timothy Friis Larsen. But once that slipstream was broken, he ended up finishing the race 10 seconds behind. So Merchant did all the right stuff at the start of the race, but just didn't have the kind of pace that your race winners got.
Yeah, and they're all together out there, a sign of respect then between all of the drivers as they look to all find themselves together. What a wonderful drive of racing that we have seen here today, as scoring is now classified here from the season opener at the Red Bull Ring. Timothy Friis Larsen then dominates proceedings here with a time of 34 minutes and 44 seconds. He wins by a margin of 4.8 over JT Smeaton, with Adam Merchant in third and Rob Mandermarker there in fourth position for the Netherlands. You then got Jake Spencer and Luis Kachan there in fifth and sixth, with Dan Jiang in seventh and Stas Pugachov then rounding your top 8. Your top 10 is finished off by Ben Ford, who was close but ran out of time to get to Pugachov, and I am Keman, who rounds out your top 10. Over the pace to 11th would be Dennis Branch, down 2 from his starting position. Nadia Mel would be there in 12th, with Sebastian Kernavonyaski there in 13th, and of course Victor Awad in 14th. You then had Andrew Petty then watching the cards of Mark Ponick, Andrea Midshaw and Lucas Hand all decide to get involved with each other with a couple of laps to go. One lap down would be Brett Greaves with a damaged front wing, and out of the race would be Gabriel Martinez and Jack David Spickett, the car in 21st position overall as they have finished. Today's running then of the Formula B Super Formula Series here on iRacing, and of course with SimSpeed TV, is brought to you in partnership with SyncMesh out there. It is going to be a wonderful run of great sponsors here today, as it is also brought to you by Get Good here in the racing action that we have had, and it has also been presented by Grid Finder then for all of the needs that you have available to find any grid out there in your running. You now also note that this has been brought to you by Full Push Sim Gear, which is Canada's ultimate destination for elite gear. From precision pedals to professional turnkey rigs, we fuel your obsession. Pure performance, expert support, push harder, drive faster. This show is also brought to you by Traction.gg. If you're enjoying the virtual action and want to understand more about the goings on within sim racing, visit the Traction.gg website daily for the latest platform updates, news and interviews. Stay up to speed with the industry, the developers and the latest equipment. That's Traction.gg, where you can also sign up for their weekly email newsletter. This is also brought to you by Scorpio Esports. Bridge the gap from sim racing to reality with Scorpio Esports today. They combine elite coaching with real-world racing opportunities in the GB4 Championship and radical racing. Take your sim racing skills to the next level and start driving and join the premier sim to reality path today. This show is brought to you by Sim Racing Nation, the community for sim racing enthusiasts and motorsport professionals from around the world. They focus on fostering competitive racing and an environment for drivers of all skill levels. This is brought to you as well by the Sim Gaming Expo, returning, of course, from September 18th through to September 20th in Schaumburg, Illinois, at the Schaumburg Convention Center, North America's only event celebrating every genre of simulation gaming under one roof. Get your tickets at simgamingexpo.com. We also have to say this broadcast is presented by Tamash Setups here. Take your iRacing setups to the next level with Tamash Setups. Get race-winning, well-reviewed setups for Super Formula and Super Formula Lights today. Head on over to tamashsetups.com or search for Tamash Setups on Patreon. And finally, with Into the Apex podcast here. The Into the Apex podcast follows the world of sim racing as if in a Discord on a Friday night or around the track campfire. You can see more at intotheapex.com. We are going to get the chance, though, to talk to some of our drivers. Your race winner here today is Timothy Friis Larsen. Timothy, that was a case of a very nice Saturday night drive for you, but one where you had to work to build the 1 second initially through the opening 10 laps.
Yeah, that was the plan from the start, just to try and get ahead of, up into first, and then do whatever it takes to extend that gap so that Adam could not have slipstream anymore. And I managed to do that and extend the gap ever since. So yeah, really happy with that one.
And so from controlling the race, you just looking at what happened last season, you were the all-conquering, all-dominant force. It looks like more of the same. How did you look to build that margin through the middle? And what do you think the difference was between you and your rivals behind?
Perhaps the setup, I'm the only one running my own setup, so it could be a difference. Otherwise, I'm not really sure what the difference was. I just kind of had more pace. So, I'm happy with that one, and I want to keep the momentum going.
We note your grandfather has been watching and was very excited to see your performance out there here today. As far as racing action will go for round 2 then of the championship, we will move away from the Red Bull Ring. You'll head over to Watkins Glen and the Boot. Sometimes that's a circuit that offers a lot more overtaking, very similar to the likes of the Red Bull Ring. Do you feel that it's just going to be an evolution of what you've done here in round 1 when you go to round 2?
I think it's going to be even closer. Like last time we were at Watkins Glen, it was full-on fight until the end. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame that I had to miss that one and with Teggy the week after as well. But yeah, I can guarantee you that, guys, that it'll be an exciting race for sure.
Timothy Friis Larsen, then a mega victory to start the season off, exactly what the doctor ordered. The driver who finished in second position was JT Smeet, and he stood by with David Haynes.
Well, joining us on the podium, and congratulations. How did you see that race playing out here at the Red Bull Ring? Super high average speeds and the use of the overtake system. How did you manage the slipstream and overtake to get forward?
Yeah, first off, nice to meet you guys. Yeah, it was a tough race for sure. The track temps were cooler than what I'd practiced in beforehand, so I was able to push a little more, but it's very draining, especially with those new 3D curbs that have been added for the season. It's really a workout, but yeah, it was a tough race for sure because this track, it forces you to push so much with the high-speed corners and the hairpins. It really forces you to brake late. And stuff like that. So yeah, it was a fun race, though. I really enjoyed it.
And how did you see the difference between qualifying and race pace? We saw some drivers who didn't qualify particularly well, making lots of moves throughout the race. Some drivers qualified well, but couldn't match it over 29 laps. Where's the difference there?
Yeah, I think I didn't qualify well as well, but it's just so close because the entire grid was separated by a second, and even though I was P7, I was only 1.5 tenths away from pole. It's just these little margin stuff. You know, in qualifying, it's very tricky to deliver over one lap. You know, there's so much pressure, especially in a very competitive field. It really forces you to push as much as you can. And I think if you go over the limit, it really punishes you. But I think overall, the race pace for me personally felt better than qualifying. But I think there's some things I could have done qualifying to avoid qualifying 7th. But yeah, I think with these longer races, it does help you because you're able to make a difference, stuff like that. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough for sure to equal qualifying pace with the race.
We know the calendar going forward for the rest of the season. What type of tracks are going to favour you more? Really, really long Grand Prix style circuits or short, sharp, sort of 10-turn tracks like this one?
That's a good question. I feel I tend to do better at grade 1 FIA grade 1 circuits like this. But of course, when we go to tracks like Adelaide, like last season, I tend to struggle a bit more there. Tracks with big curbs, especially, I struggle on. But I think overall, my pace is all right over the course of this track choices for this car. But yeah, it's really tough because some drivers they really benefit having a lot of slower corners, slower tracks on the calendar, and then on the other hand, you have drivers that are very fast at tracks with long straights, high speed corners like Spa and Monza. But yeah, I think that should be very interesting to look forward to as the season goes on. But yeah.
JT, great result, great big strength to field points haul. Well done, and hopefully see you around for many more races this season.
Thank you, David. Much appreciated.
That was JT Smeaton there, second overall. Third belonged to Adam Merchant, who was your pole sitter today, and along with me right now. Adam, it's always great to get a pole position over drivers like Timothy out there, who's been dominant last season, but by the time you got to turn 1, he was straight down your inside and away. What happened?
Yeah, how you guys doing? Thanks for having me here. Timothy has some stellar launches, so that's been the case last season and this one. I would have been happy holding P2 behind him. I had a feeling he was going to get me at the start, but his pace was just a little too good basically everywhere. Lost the toe to him, and then, yeah, he was gone, sadly.
And managing the middle of the race, you slowly got reeled in there by JT Smeaton, and ultimately for you, it was just about finding your own pace, finding your own rhythm. Was that a case of race management for you today over the 29 laps?
Yeah, to be honest, I picked up way too many incident points. By the time JT caught up to me, I was really pushing to stay on Timothy's in his draft, but I had, I think, 14 or 13 incident points by like lap 12. So yeah, it was about just settling down. I kind of just let JT through, accidentally picked up another incident point in that process, and then just managed the gap to Rob and tried to bring home a podium.
And so managing your expectations, it is a podium to start the season. And so you're looking around at it, Watkins Glen, more of the same really in terms of high speed, trying to navigate through it. Do you feel that the confidence is there after finding yourself running in the top 3 all day?
Yeah, I think this is where I'd like to finish at the end of the season. I would love to finish P3 in the Super Formula Series. So JT and Timothy, I feel like had pace that I couldn't replicate today. So hopefully I can close that gap next week. But yeah, this is where I'd like to be at the end of the season.
Adam Merchant there joining us, a 3rd position overall. And David has wandered down the paddock and he's found himself with the Canadian Mark Ponick.
Well, hello. To kick off a new season, how'd that race go?
Oh, hey everybody! It was a bit of a rough race. I actually haven't raced in a very long time due to an injury on my braking foot, but I wanted to just jump in and thank everyone for sponsoring. We were absolutely stunned that we were able to cover the entire season before race 1 even went off. So thanks to all of our sponsors. Thanks to you guys for um, being the service that you are. That's the reason we picked you. Is we wanted to make sure we went with a good setup, and I'm looking forward to check the race back and see how everything went. My race was a little back of the pack, little uneventful until the end there, and a little bit of a collision, but it's all good. It's just racing, so it was good fun.
Certainly looked like that. Well, we got a little bit of field spread with sort of the lead driver, the top 5 getting away, that in the mid pack was really, really densely packed. And I guess that's where the strategy of the overtake system becomes most crucial.
Yeah, and I think I missed it a couple times coming out of turn 1 where I should have probably hit overtake and didn't. But when you've got one car a half a second in front of you and one a half second behind you for 15 laps straight, you tend to miss things once in a while as you're trying to figure out who's where. Is he catching me? Am I losing him? And so on. But towards the end, I don't know if you caught it, the last 3-4 laps, we had caught up to the group in front. So there was a good train of like 5-6 cars basically fighting it out. And I've said it before, I genuinely don't care where I wind up as long as I'm having a good fun race, and that was a good fun race, so it worked out.
Awesome. What of any of the tracks coming forward in the schedule do you think you're looking forward to? Do you think the community's looking forward to? Presumably the Japanese tracks are going to be well attended in this car.
I would think so. I mean, Motegi has a bit of an issue with drivers because they're just not a big fan of the track. But the other 2 Japanese tracks that are on the schedule, like Suzuka, Fuji, absolutely, they're an absolute blast. I've always been a big fan of, the Spa, Suzuka, Silverstone, Coda, which not everyone is a big fan of Coda, but I do love it. So yeah, I guess we'll see as it progresses. I think Road Atlanta is next week, which wouldn't say is a favorite of mine, but they do tend to make for good races. So look forward to that.
Our information, I believe, says Watkins Glen for next round.
Oh, well then, pardon me, I'm not even getting up to speed on the schedule. Watkins is a blast. There's just no really heavy braking zones, but it does have an advantage in that you can basically go too wide for an entire lap. There's enough room, and going as long as we don't have that chicane, the bus stop going into the big curve, then it's usually a really fun race. That bus stop can really mess with the suspension as you go over it. So I know there was talk about it not necessarily being included this week, or next week, pardon me. So we'll see how that works out.
We'll see. It'll be live on SimSpeed channels, and wishing you the best of luck and hopefully see you there.
Yeah, and thanks again, guys, and congrats to P123. Good to see Tim keep going. We'll get him on James next week.
There you
Jake,
have it.
definitely the B-roll from our producer has us skipping the inner loop.
Yes, it's a very, very aggressive run. It is the boot layout out there. I'm not sure whether it's going to be labeled the classic boot layout, which would be the one that skips the chicane. I think we are going to be running that chicane as far as what the layout would indicate to me. But either way, you can catch that in 7 days' time. That will only be on SpinSpeed TV channels because of the fact that you've got the iRacing 12 Hours of Sebring, which is just 7 days away. Well, actually, yes, exactly 7 days away. So you'll definitely want to check that out and also catch some amazing racing should it get around to you with the Super Formula Series Formula Bs out there overall. A wonderful day's worth of racing, but one where dominance was personified at the front of the field. You can say here in terms of running that a new season brings new opportunities, and drivers who want to prove themselves up at the front is one of the highest strength of fields we've seen in this championship. But critically put, in terms of running here today, this has been the dominance here from Jay Kennedy, David Haynes, and Jake Sperry of one Mr. Timothy Fries Larson. Head and shoulders above the field today, and we'll be looking at what will be going on at round 2, saying, I am the happiest chap from the season opener.